Yes. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from the UK, as you can tell, and I work with solo entrepreneurs who are feeling a little bit stuck. Maybe they're a little bit overwhelmed with everything that they've got going on. They can't really figure out why things aren't working, and they just feel like they're running from one crisis to another in their business. They're busy, but they're not really getting anywhere. So I help people get unstuck and streamline what they're thinking, how they're moving forwards, and develop a plan that's really easy to stick to so that they can just get stuff done. So yeah, that's what I do.
And I love it, solopreneurs. There's a lot of us in the house. So I have partners I work with. I'm doing a lot of the background work. I find it so helpful because I could definitely identify with getting those times of feeling stuck, feeling overwhelmed, being hard to get those breakthroughs in your business and to be able to go to the next phase in your business. It's because we want to make impact. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
So we need people like you, Sarah, in our lives.
Well, I've been doing this for, well, over 20 years now. I've been self-employed. I started out in the fitness industry, a personal trainer, and then moved into injury therapy and then tried to teach personal trainers about how to do that. And I learned a lot of things along the way by doing things wrong. So, they say if there's any mistake to be made in business, I reckon I've made it. They go, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. I was doing all of that. And I think the thing that I can see now looking back on it, because you don't see it at the time because you're too close to it. But the thing that I can see now is that I never really got the opportunity to stand back and look at my business and go, hang on a minute, what's working? What isn't working? Where do I need to put my efforts? Where can I best spend my time? Oh, it's such a good idea. You should really stick with this. And I did that for about 8 years, every single day, banging my head against a brick wall, thinking nobody was listening to me. Nobody was paying me, but the support I was hearing was driving that, well, I must do this and I must do this. And it was so hard. And I realize now it doesn't need to be that way. If it feels that difficult, it's probably not right for you. Why is it taking me this long to figure it out? But yeah, so I've been in the struggle. I'm not out of the struggle. I don't know anybody that's in business for themselves. Every
Hello.
single day, no matter how much money you're earning, every day there's some kind of issue that needs sorting out. So, we're all in it together. We're all learning together. And this is what I'm loving about what I'm doing now. It's being really well received. So I'm really grateful for that.
I love it. And Sarah, I got to tell you, I'm finishing your book today, which I'm excited about, more than halfway through. And what I love the most about your book is how real you are with your story. And reading that part drew me into the book so quickly. Hearing your story here, it was good to hear it again because that's one of the things that just helps people so much to be able to make connections with you, but make connections for themselves as they're starting their journey to learn from you. So I really appreciate that. And it's just hear stories too when I'm reading books and stuff like that, or if I'm listening to other coaches or entrepreneurs. But yours was just it was raw. It was real.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's funny, you hear all these business people, and a lot of them are very successful, really clever people, and they're giving you all this advice. But when you're so in your own business, so focused on your own business, it's really difficult to hear that message. And it's amazing how once I step back from it and once I have a little bit more breathing space, a little bit more brain space, I can actually hear those messages. And now I can see where I was going wrong. I couldn't hear them before, even though you're consuming all of this business information and all of this stuff. It's just going in because there's just not enough brain space left over.
Mm.
So it's interesting for me that emotion becomes the center of everything that we're doing. When I was doing injury treatment, I could see how impactful somebody's emotions were on their physical well-being. And so for me, it's like, well, if the emotions play such a big role in my physical health, then why can't I harness the power of that and put it into my business?
Woo!
You know?
Just let you know, Sarah, when I give snaps, that means that's like a clap. Have you ever seen the comedy club, like people snap, or poetry club? That's snaps right there. That's a value bomb right there. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah. I can ask you about that. Oh, we're gonna say?
I was just going to say that productivity to me is not about ticking things off a list or checking things off a list, like you would say. It's really about an emotional strategy. It's not about organization and lists and stuff like that. They help, but until you kind of find that emotional stability and you're able to control that emotional stability and keep finding it quickly when things knock you off path, it's really difficult to get anything done.
Wow. That I think that draws me the most to what you're doing, Sarah, the emotion part of it. Because in our society, I'm not sure how it is in England, but in America, there's so much focus on emotion has a negative connotation. Even for men, it's like, well, don't be emotional. Oh, that's emotional.
It's somehow.
It's like you're soft somehow. But I know for me, like I help people with their presence, right? They need emotion. They need to focus on their emotion. They need to tap into it. Because without tapping into it, you don't give anything. Emotion's a really, really good thing if you could control it and you could tap into it. And that's what I try to tell people. So this was a game changer reading your book because even like Brian Tracy and people like that, I love their books and they're very helpful for me. But something that can train you to say, hey, take your emotion and draw it in the right direction. You can use it as an asset for you. There's something about that. It's like a new teaching.
It's really interesting because, and I keep going back to the injury stuff that I was doing before, but I used to use a method that used energy, so I called it energy medicine. It was basically healing somebody else using my own emotion, right? So when somebody's in pain, their body it used to feel like it was fizzing to me. It's really unsettled. And all it takes is somebody who's calmer than you to start settling that down. And that would really impact the amount of pain that somebody was in. And we are emotional beings first. Babies respond to emotions because they don't have words. They sense things, they feel things. And animals do that. All animals do that. We are animals at the end of the day, So if my dog can sense how I feel just by reading my emotion, that's just how powerful it is. I can trigger my dog to get really excited just by being really giddy, and I don't have to show it and I don't have to use big gestures and all the rest of it. She can just feel it. And we're all the same. So when we can use that and tap into that and connect with that, we have this really deep sense of calm in ourselves, but also in what we're doing. We have so much confidence in what we're doing when we can settle and feel that on such a deep level. And it's really not difficult to achieve once you know how to do that.
Right. Wow. I can identify with that so much. That's big on what I try to teach and coach people. Emotion is so because with emotion, you can, even as an artist, if I sing or if I speak or whatever I do, if I give emotion, there are certain parts of my conversation I'll have with you that I can draw you in with, and I can make a message stick. I'm like, man, I got a summit coming up this fall. I'm like, have Sarah come on if that's possible, because I'm like, oh my, that's so important. So it just blows me away that you're adding this to what you have, this element, and with what you're doing with your framework. And
Thank you.
with this book, Stop Doing It All. I just love that title. It just makes you say, okay, all right, where are we going, Sarah? Tell me, teach me.
Yeah.
Right. It just seems like such a well thought out, it seemed, let me know if I'm wrong, but it seems like this was years in the making based off your experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've written books before.
Right.
So I think this is my 5th book that I wrote.
Okay.
Throughout my career, I've written books and I've followed Jim Edwards' teaching like we have. And,
Right.
I've followed his system. This honestly was the book that took the longest to write. It wasn't quite years, but it was months rather than weeks. I started it because basically Jim did a challenge for, write your book and all that kind of stuff. He went, "You're going to write one, aren't you?" Okay, what am I going to write it on? I don't know. I was just transitioning out of my injury business. My injury business was struggling to get anywhere, and I was just about making traction with that. And then COVID came along, wiped out all the personal trainers' income overnight, which wiped out my business overnight.
Right.
Because learning about injuries was a nice to have rather than a necessity. They weren't willing to pay out to learn about it, so I had to really pivot, and I realized then that I didn't enjoy being in the industry. It didn't make me feel safe. So it's very cutthroat, it's very backstabby, it's very opinionated, and I'm not like that. It just didn't suit me as a person, but it's what I'd known all along. I was just coming out of realizing that I didn't really want to be in the industry. When Jim went, "You're going to write a book, aren't you?" I'm like, okay, what do I write a book on? There's loads of books that are really popular books that are all about productivity. I'm like, the one thing I know how to do is get stuff done. I can get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
Why do I do that? And then I was like, right, well, I'll just write a book on productivity. Maybe it'll, go somewhere. Maybe it won't. I was really struggling with it because everything that I seemed to be writing just seemed really generic. And I was like, what's my angle? What do I feel about this? And I was really struggling with trying to formulate it into any kind of message. But in writing the book, the Potent Productivity Method came out, and I was like, this is it. And I wanted then to refine it and make it as good as I possibly could, which I would do with any project that I take on. But that's why it took me so long to write this one. And it's really nice to hear you say that it feels thought out and, all that, because it did. It took a lot of thinking, but, it's what I do.
Can you talk about the Potent Productivity Method? Sounds really cool, and it's catchy too. I can remember it. I could keep it on the tip of my tongue.
Yes.
What separates that or distinguishes that from the typical hustle culture and all this stuff? What separates that from the hustle culture?
I think too many people jump to what you need to do before they tackle how you feel about it.
Oof.
Try and jump to what you should do rather than dealing with how you feel about it.
Oof.
Because one of the biggest things that I struggled with the injury business was putting myself out there. I felt really uncomfortable doing that. And it didn't really matter how many people told me to get over myself. It didn't matter how many times I've just tried to push through it and just do it anyway, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's all a load of nonsense if you don't feel confident in yourself. And
Right.
so the Potent Productivity Method is all about figuring out all the different ways in your business that you can close the door on doubt, right? So each piece layers on top of each other to create this really solid foundation that so your doubt is not gone because we all have it, but we don't have to listen to it quite as strongly. And that helps you to do the things that feel a little bit scary. So, like me, for example, being interviewed about this book, for some people I know like you, some people I don't know. And I'm willing to do that now because I have these pieces in place that have eliminated so much of my doubt and so much of my second guessing and so much of my, I don't think I'm good enough, because I know what makes me different and I know how to talk about it and I know the content. It's a memorable name. It's my unique angle. And it's something different that makes me stand out without actually having to shout about it. Because I'm from Britain and I'm from Yorkshire in the UK, and we are not people who go, "Oh, look at me, I'm fabulous." We're like, yeah, okay, that'll do.
That's so powerful, Sarah, because from what I see, what you're doing is saying, you're not screaming, you're not shouting in that way, but you're shouting in a quiet way. You're saying, hey, what do you think about this? Here's some principles. What do you think about this and how does this apply to you? It's pretty bold what you're doing in that, but what you're doing right there, it offers so much transformation for someone because it causes them to think about their thinking and feel about their feeling.
The methods that they have heard about and seen about before, those then become really powerful because, time blocking techniques and prioritizing in order of urgency and, all of that stuff comes afterwards. And
Mm.
when you layer that on top of a really solid foundation, then, you're almost unstoppable because you just get stuff done. You don't spend the time worrying about what other people think or, just with that whole fog of like, what do I do now? Or, oh my God, there's so much to do. It's just like, right, well, I know what I'm doing. I'll just get on with it.
Yeah, I love that. That's, I mean, I can't wait to see. I'm gonna follow you along and I'm so curious because it's such a courageous and bold thing you're doing. Like even alone putting the emotion in there, which I'm really attached to because you got to put, when you do something, you got to put umph and effort into it. And sometimes it's hard to identify how to do that. And with your book, it's like you helping people with self-discovery is you're showing people the door on how to do that, which is game changer in this productivity world. And
Right.
especially for us as solopreneurs, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I'm from Yorkshire in the UK and we are straight talking, don't mess about, no touchy feely stuff, But the problem is we need to talk about that stuff, but in a practical kind of way. You
Right.
know, yes, you can sit and contemplate the world for a month if that's what makes you feel good. But really, at the end of the day, you just need to get on with it.
Right.
So yes, discover that stuff, but do it in a way that is practical and moves you forward quite quickly rather than spending extended periods of time figuring things out. It's kind of expediting the process so that you can just get on with things.
Right. Yeah, I sense that too. It's like you created an environment where people could take the steps forward intrinsically. Like you've mentioned, the get on with it. I don't sense that from your book at all. But there's an environment created for you to get on with it. Which was, man, was that intentional, or did you just discover it as you were creating? I'm personally curious.
Yeah, I think I'd been aware of me being like that since my injury days.
Hmm.
Because people are very, very vulnerable when they have been in pain for a long time,
Right.
you know, and a lot of times they don't want to do the rehab. They don't want to do all of the stuff that's going to make them better. They just want to get back to training, you know? So it was more a case of, well, we need to tackle this and then get you back to training. And it's always been kind of how I am. So I don't suppose it's a surprise, really, that you've mentioned that again.
It's so important though, because a lot of people lack that quality, and it's a very important leadership quality that a lot of people don't tap into. But I find personally, as you tap into it, you just help way more. You help many more people, more people. So yeah, I love it.
It's funny, there's a quote by Maya Angelou that really stands in my head, and it's, you will forget what people said, you will forget what people did, but you will never forget how they made you feel, you know?
Right.
And even like thinking back to when you were in school, you can probably think of a favorite teacher, and you had that favorite teacher because of how they made you feel about yourself, if not what they said or did, although they might have been the only one that was very encouraging to you, but it's how
Right.
they made you feel by what they said and did rather than anything else. And that's the connection that joins everybody to each other, you know? And so when we can communicate in that way and we can understand that about ourselves, we can communicate that to our audiences, which makes us more powerful in communication, but also in the people that we're trying to help. We can reach more people because we know how they feel, we know how we feel, and we can really then connect properly with those people.
So in the C word, your biggest obstacle, you address control. Why is that significant for business owners? And why
Well,
is it a challenge?
a lot of the business owners I have worked with, I've worked with hundreds of business owners now on a one-to-one basis, they all struggle because it's their own little baby. They've grown it right from nothing into maybe it's huge, maybe it's getting big, maybe it's only just started, who knows? But it's very personal to them, And I think oftentimes as a solo business owner, we see what we put out into the world as a reflection of ourselves. So when we want somebody else to do something for us, it's like, well, you're not me. So how can you possibly reflect me because I'm not doing it? You know? So we feel like we have to have that element of control, even though we don't feel like we're controlling people necessarily,
Right.
Yeah, and totally. But the thing is, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a community to raise a business. You can't do it yourself. You need help from other people, whether it's just a sounding board or somebody doing some graphics for you. They might not be a paid employee. You might not want that kind of business, but they are your team. They are your support crew. They are there to help you. And if you struggle to let things go and give them to other people to do, then you will just spend your time being busy rather than being profitable.
Right. What practical advice can you offer for those juggling brand building, productivity, and personal life successfully?
Oh, we're all doing that.
Well,
We all have stuff going on. I'm in the middle of renovating a house right now, and I've, writing a book and promoting the business and, doing all these things. And I'm sure you've got lots of things going on too. We have lots of different elements of our lives. And I think the key really is to put really clear boundaries into your life. So for me, I know that I work from a certain time of day to a certain time of day because, well, I have a dog and she needs to go out for a walk. So I start my day when I take her out, and then I finish my working day when I take her out in the afternoon. I can spend some time with my family. And then there's times when I can do meetings in the evenings like this because it's evening time for me because of the time difference. That's helpful. And it's just making sure that those boundaries are in place so that you're not constantly thinking about work. I think that's the really hard thing to do when you're a solo business owner. You see the people on holiday on their phones all the time, they just can't forget about work. And my granddad used to call it pulling the shutters down. Like a shop front that's got a metal shutter, a roller shutter on the front. He used to imagine pulling that down in his brain. It's like work has gone now. I'm at home. I don't need to think about that anymore. I think one of the biggest things that solo business owners, particularly service-based solo business owners, struggle with is the idea of emergency. There is absolutely nothing, and there was nothing when I was dealing with people's pain. There is nothing that is so much of an emergency that you need me to drop everything and deal with you right now. Right? If you're in that much pain, I am the wrong person for you to be looking for. You need to go to the emergency room. Right? That's not me. It's not what I know how to do. If your website has gone down, I'm not the right person for you to be speaking to. You need to speak to your hosting provider or whoever it is that's doing that. And it's knowing that as a solo business owner that I can confidently just go, do you know what? I'm closing the door. I'm not going to look at my emails. I'll see those tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's just the most powerful thing. And that thing just sticks in my head. Pull the shutters down.
That's a great analogy.
Walk away.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Pull the shutters down.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm using that in my life. Pull the shutters down.
Well,
I think boundaries are so important. It's interesting. Been learning about that as far as boundaries, and boundaries can serve you in so many ways. Boundaries in a friendly way. Boundaries aren't always a bad thing. For business owners, man, boundaries can serve us so well. So well. Oh, how important it is to have boundaries when you're learning something or doing something, because sometimes that can protect you from being a perfectionist. You got a certain amount of time to get it done, and that's it.
yes.
And that was a boundary. So I think boundaries serve really well. So that's in my mind this week because that was yesterday. That was my experience yesterday. So it's timely that we're having this conversation.
Yeah. But it's funny. I wanted a dog all my life. And I finally managed to get one when I was 37, I think. So I was obsessed with Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. And boundaries and limitations for dogs. I was like, we're no different. Kids especially, you put them in a routine when they're babies. They sleep better if they know where they stand. They don't act out quite as much when they know what the consequences might be. My mum always used to say that do that again and there'll be consequences. And I was like, I don't want to see what those consequences are. I'm not going to do that again. You know, because I watched my sister push the boundaries and again, and I watched the consequences for her. I was like, I'm not having any part of it.
Yeah, I'm good.
So it's not just for, children. It's not just for animals. It's for us too. And it's so helpful being able to just stop, because it's time to stop, and honestly, I think it saved my relationship and so many people's as well, because how many times have you heard, oh, put your phone away, or I don't feel like you're in the room. You're there, but you're not really there. You're not focusing, you're just constantly looking at your phone.
Right.
I'll get a notification, but it doesn't make a sound.
Right.
That's the difference, because it used to be ding, ding, ding all the time. It's really distracting. Trying to watch TV and you're thinking, just look at that message because I don't know who that's from. But as soon as it stops making a noise, I stop looking.
Right. Hello, Sarah. Let me ask you a question. What is your favorite chapter in Stop Doing It All?
Well, there's quite a few, but I think I really enjoyed writing the chapter about Wreck-It Rose. So for those who haven't read the book, you know the angel and the devil that sit on your shoulder? I created 2 cartoon characters. One is Wreck-It Rose, and the other one is Kick-Ass Katie. And Wreck-It Rose is just determined to destroy everything that you're trying to achieve. She wants you to feel inadequate. She wants you to worry about stuff. She wants you to stop getting things done. So she uses what I call weapons of mass inaction.
Ooh.
And they are your fears. And I learned this from Jim Edwards. He calls them underlying fear drivers. They're universal underlying fear drivers as human beings that we all have. So we worry about losing money, and we worry about looking stupid, or all those things that we worry about. She uses those as ways to make you hesitate and ways to make you doubt yourself. That whole chapter was like outlining 10 of those fears and explaining how she's using that, what that might look like in your business, and how you can turn that into Kick-Ass Katie confidence and, just kind of step forwards out of that. So you're not spinning your wheels stuck in that mindset of, oh, I'm not good enough, and who am I to be telling people this and talking about this subject when other people have been doing this for longer than me.
I love it. I think this is going to have to be one of my top 5 books for the year. Listen, I'm not sure if you can see it on my screen, but y'all better get your book. And that's my next question. Where can they find your book? I know it's kind of glowing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You can get it at stopdoingitallbook.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Stopdoingitallbook.com. I'll say that again.
Stopdoingitallbook.com.
Love it. Love it. Oh my gosh. Sarah, this is such a great time. Thanks so much for joining us, our audience. This audience is like, it's where the whole idea is where entrepreneurship and culture meet. And it's such an intersection where a lot of people don't identify. But, I noticed as an artist, like, wait, there's a huge intersection here from when I was an artist and an entrepreneur. There's so many similarities. So, just even today's conversation about productivity and all the elements you talk about and the elements that you boldly put in your book, which I'm excited about, is huge. So I think our audience is going to really benefit for this episode. Really excited. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
I hope to be fun. I love fun.
Yeah. Everything should be fun.
That's right. There you have it. Yeah, love it. Good stuff. It's a wrap. Good stuff. All right. Thanks for joining.
I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was really moved with your post that you put out, and I was encouraged. And I was like, yes, come on. And let me tell you, I know you talked about how you are and stuff, and this is your one who might be in the corner, but you on fire in this episode. And I appreciate your confidence and your boldness really shined.
Thank you. This is the first time I've ever had the confidence to do that, because before, I would talk about things that were opposite in the fitness industry. I'd go against the conventional wisdom, and they really didn't like it. And they were mean about it. They were really nasty about it.
Oh,
I was talking to a lady on Zoom once, and it took me 20 minutes to tell her I needed the bathroom because she was on such a rant
mm,
about how, what I was doing was so terrible and, all this kind of stuff. Now, I would just leave the meeting.
yeah,
I wouldn't even give her the time of day. I'm like,
right.
because, well, I feel like I've found my people.
Yeah.
The business world is just so much nicer, and especially the John Maxwell. And
Thanks for watching, and be sure to leave a comment and hit that notification bell icon to get up-to-date content.